Welcome to the Into Infinity I2I broadcast today with Michael Evans from California, United States. Hello, Michael. So today we want to talk with him. He's been working in the field of geometry for the last 50 years, actually. 50 years, that's a very long time. He's met actually one of the big guys, Buckminster Fuller. I'm quite excited that you actually met him. And today we want to talk about one of his discoveries and the geometry of light. So, Michael, how did you actually end up working with geometry? What's your profession? How did you end up doing that stuff?
Purely accidental. It was sort of like walking in the forest and lost in the woods and finding a path and bending down and picking something up and changing your entire life. I had no background. I have no background in mathematics whatsoever. I don't think I ever passed a mathematics course in school. I did get a C in geometry when I was 14 years old and a sophomore in high school. That was the highest grade I ever got. And somehow I found the space between. And I've been playing with that space for over 50 years now.
Right. What was the initial experience? How did you find your way into it?
I was in the real estate business and I was minding my own business and doing quite well in it. And all of a sudden, but I've always been an artist. I've always painted and drawn, and I've had a creative stint in my life, even though I did I was a real estate broker, which is about as regular as you could be. And I met a gentleman by the name of Robert Auerbach, who was a package designer for Continental Can Company. And he used to design packaging and displays that you see in your grocery store, wherever. And one of the things about being a package designer is you have to know where to cut and you have to know where to score. Scoring is a very important part because that's what makes it possible to make something two-dimensional, three-dimensional, because you fold on the score.
Yes.
So he was studying at the Bauhaus in Illinois, and Buckminster Fuller came and he told his students to look for the universal intersection. If you're going to design something, come up with the universal intersection, and that's all you got to make because it'll fit everything. Well, he took that idea and he went home and he took a whole mess of balloons and he blew up the balloons and he tied them all together, and then he took plaster of Paris and started pushing plaster of Paris inside between the balloons and hung it up as a sculpture. Well, the string broke, and after the plaster dried, it hit the ground, and inside it looked like some prehistoric dinosaur bones because there was a space between the balloons.
Mm.
Being a package designer, he realized where to cut.
You're just disappearing. All right.
Yeah. I'm disappearing, but it's showing up. Where to cut and where to score. And if you know how to do that, then you know how to bend.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, something that was two-dimensional now became three-dimensional. Without adding anything to it, without gluing anything to it, by just scoring, he was able to fold and make something that dimensional.
Mm.
Well, he brought these ideas to me, and we decided, well, what do we do with this information? Because it's a different way of looking at geometry. We're familiar with the power of life, which is curved, but we don't take it's two-dimensional. And what I've done was take the two-dimensional flower of life and made it three-dimensional. And I don't believe there's a first or second dimension. I don't believe that ideas I believe that ideas are three-dimensional. They are contained within a three-dimensional container, which I call the Tryon Ray, the smallest possible regular polyhedron. Plato said there were 5. Michael says there's 6.
Mm.
And the difference is Plato's were all straight lines, mine are all curved.
Feminine.
So I've been involved in exploring the space between things for the past 50 years.
Oh. Yeah, and I like to say just a little bit to the Tryon Ray because it's quite interesting because we always teach the Tryon Ray as well because it's actually the shape that you create after 4 circles, actually in 2D. Yeah, it's the petal shape in the flower of life, and the way I teach my students is always okay. The way to remember the Tryon Ray is we get our hands up and we say Tryon Ray. So we have this movement, Tryon Ray, like meaning to try on a ray of light. It's just our memory.
I thought that too when I was naming.
Yeah. Perfect then.
It's one of the reasons why I figured that was a good thing. Try it on. Try it on. You might like it.
Exactly. This is exactly how we do it. Try on a ray of light, and they all laugh, and then they can remember. And it's funny because
How did you find it?
Actually, we found it through one of your videos. Yeah, we found the name through one of your videos, and they were like, because we want to introduce certain ontologies in geometry. You know, certain shapes have certain forms, like 2 circles are Vesca Pisces. Yeah, so when you have 4 circles, then actually you create the first petal shape in the flower of life. And this is the Tryon Ray after Michael Evans. So, yeah, so you actually invented the name. And so what is it about this shape? Do you actually have a 3D version so we can see it? Yeah, this is it.
It's the lens.
Yeah.
Well, I made it.
It makes the screen disappear. It's amazing.
How about now?
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
This is the Tryon Ray.
This is the Tryon Ray, yeah. And what's so special about the shape?
It makes all the others.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it makes a tetrahedron, it makes an octahedron, it makes a dodecahedron, and it makes a square. You know, all the other polyhedra are created from the Tryon Ray. So it is the one thing. And since it's a solid, it's a container, it's a vessel. Looks like a vessel.
Yes.
And it may have been like when they talk about Noah's Ark, where things were contained within the ark. Well, maybe it was an ARC of light rather than an ARK of wood.
Possible.
That everything came out of.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful.
And when I realized after I found it, I found that if I shoot light into one end, it comes out the other.
Mm.
So that's what I realized, that this is how light works. It pulses. The Tryon Ray is not a static geometric form. Geometry is not static. Mathematics is not static. And I think that's the reason why they haven't been able to really figure out how it all works. There's so many different types of mathematics, 30 or 40 different types of mathematics. That's because it's in constant flux. It may be this 1 second, but then it's something else in another second, millisecond. And it's constantly fluctuating.
Yes. Yeah, I saw one of your images in one of the geometry groups, and I remember I said, oh, it looks like the geometries are breathing. Yeah, because they're breathing in, they're breathing out.
Yes.
And I found that quite beautiful to see it like this, because I feel, I mean, obviously everything is kind of working in flow, no, in life. You have energies, you have waves going in and out.
If everything's connected, then it has to be moving. It has to be breathing. Which also means everything is alive. Everything is alive. A rock is alive. We know that there's space between rocks. We know that there's more space in a rock than there is rock,
Yes.
and it's moving. And the Tryon Ray being the elemental geometric form that all other forms are created from, gives us a whole new way of looking at the universe. And it shows the connectedness of everything, of how it's all connected. I asked you when we spoke once about Indra's net. Did you ever get a chance to look up Indra's net?
I didn't. I forgot.
Okay. Well, Indra's net is from India.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I figured. So it's think of a spider web where every corner where the webs connect is a mirrored pearl, reflecting every other pearl in the entire web. Well, my geometry is like that, but in multi-dimensions. It's not just a flat web. It's a multi-dimensional web, which I call the Mickey ball.
Mm-hmm.
This is the basics. From these 7 shapes, geometry can be created. You start with the triangle, the square, the pentagon, the hexagon, the septagon, the octagon, and the nonagon.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that all of them have one thing in common, the cusp. This part right here.
Yes.
And this is how they all attach on the cusp. So all of geometry has this in common. These are the basic forms that'll create everything else in the universe. It all comes from just a few. And the one thing that makes all the things is the cusp. Here's the flower of life taken off the 2D page.
Mm-hmm.
Is that big enough, by the way, for you?
It's great. Yeah. By the way, that image in 3D is actually what you find in Beijing, China, in the Forbidden City.
Yeah, and the voodoo dog.
Yeah.
The voodoo dog has his paw on the Mickey ball. That's a Mickey ball in the core.
Yes.
Because if you start putting Tryon Rays together, making tetrahedrons, this is what you eventually get, is this structure in the center.
Yes.
Which I call the Mickey.
All right.
Now, I found that I met Buckminster Fuller back about 50 years ago, 45 years ago. And I brought a model of the fly's eye dome that he designed, one that I made using my toys. And I went home to try and build a buckyball, and it was impossible to do because it just wouldn't stay together. So I just started making tetrahedrons and kept putting them together and putting them together. And that's ball in the center is the culmination of putting tetrahedrons together. You get a sphere.
Yes.
And in the process, all the other geometric forms are created. Tetrahedrons, octahedrons, dodecahedrons, icosahedrons, and vector equilibrium are all within this ball in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is, normally that we say also that everything comes from the flower of life pattern, the overlapping circles making the Tryon Ray. Yeah.
Correct. This is just the flats of the cusp put together, and the black space. And what I have found, it seems that the further you go, the space between, another space, I think it goes on infinitum. In other words, there's always a space between. And that space between seems to be forever, infinite. So the more we look, it's like looking at the stars. The further out we look, the more we find. It never comes to an end.
Yes.
At least it hasn't so far.
The infinity of infinities.
Yes, infinity is the word we're looking for. This I call a cluster. This is the space between 3 spheres. And it was the first geometric form that I found that was three-dimensional rather than two-dimensional, because this has a cusp on the side. This is in one of my studios, and bigger. And these are all putting Tryon Rays together, creating. Right here is an icosahedron. This is the core. This is a dodecahedron, which is the next building as it grows. And this is the Mickey ball, the sphere, completed.
Yeah, for me, it seems like what you're showing is really, let's say, the underlying feminine energetic aspect of the universe, no? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is feminine. It is the feminine because it's all curved.
Yes, yes.
I have come to the conclusion that physics is about sex because somehow this makes this go like this. This makes this go like this. Curves, recognizing the curves and the straight lines. Someone who did, Jordan Pierce did Jordan River, he goes by now, from Spirit Science.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you should really check out because he did the first video using my work.
Right.
And he's come up with some incredible concepts. Here's the Tryon Ray showing you're getting a infinity sign. You're getting the red here going from one side to the other. And that's your basic geometric form. Now here's a tetrahedron in another dimension. I call it a tetron.
Nice.
It's not a it's a tetron. Because I had to rename everything because in the beginning when I started making all these structures, I made a children's toy out of this, which I'll get into as we go further down this thing, called Space Clusters. And I went to New York City to the toy show. I was already selling my toys, my construction toys, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Art Institute, and museums all over the country and department stores. And I went to the toy show, and a fellow by the name of Edmund from Edmund Scientific, where it was a surplus scientific place where you could buy surplus scientific items. And he comes up to my booth and he says, well, what do you call that structure? I've never seen a geometric structure like that before. And at that time I said, gee, I don't know. I never thought about it. So I started buying science books and geometry books to see if I could find these structures in the books. And I couldn't find them. They weren't there. So then I realized it was time for me that I was going to have to name these structures. So the Tryon Ray, the tetron, because this is really a tetrahedron in another dimension. Here's another picture of the tetron looking at it from the top.
But for sure, it's beautiful. Looks like a crystal, something you could wear.
Yeah, absolutely. I wore one for years. This is a tetron stack, 4 tetrons and 1 octatron in the core, in the center.
And looks.
We would call it a normal tetrahedron, but it's a tetrahedron of tetrahedrons, but they're tetrons. In the center is the octahedron, which is an octatron.
And so what is it that do you think these structures do with light? I mean, if they can transform light, really just transmitting light signals, how does it affect reality, and what's the function?
It's reality. It's how it's like a multi-dimensional room.
Yes.
In other words, the universe is made of light. And that light forms time and space, and the fabric of time and space. It weaves it in a multi-dimensional loop. And it starts down at the Planck level. It's like the Higgs. It could very well be the Higgs, the Tryon Ray, the smallest possible geometric form. In other words, how do you break down something that's geometrically regular and has less sides and elements to it than a Tryon Ray? Nothing. 3 edges, 2 points, 3 faces. It's the smallest possible, and it's never been described. It has in the flower of life, but that's 2-dimensional. It's never been taken off the 2D page. So this is what I found, and what I discovered is that it's really more than just a cusp. It's a solid. Here's the flower of life done with Tryon Rays.
Yes, nice.
That's how it really looks.
So you've been working on this for a very, very, very long time already. A lifetime, definitely. How has this exploration filled your life with purpose? Do you see a mission behind it? Do you see it's affecting people?
It's really interesting. I put it all away after a certain amount of time, because you've heard the expression before your time.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I was definitely before my time. And when I made the children's toy, I'm going to go to that right now, since we brought it up several times.
So this is your studio, is it, in California?
No, I started this in Chicago.
All right. It almost sounds like we're going already into space.
All right, well, here it is, space clusters. So when we found all this information, we figured, well, what can we do with it? So I went to universities, I went to General Dynamics, big corporations, said, look, gentlemen, I got this new way of looking at life, and you can build things in different ways and curves instead of straight lines. And everybody looked at me like, I went to NASA. I said, look, you can build your space station much easier if you do it this way, because everything will fit together. It'll just keep building and building. And everyone said, well, Mike, it's not invented here. We've already got plans. We're not throwing away the millions of dollars of plans we've already invested in. And so I eventually, what do I do with the information? So I made it a children's toy. And this is what's on your screen right now. I'm going to try and make that bigger. Oops.
Yeah, children's are generally very open to geometry. They love it.
Well, I figured that children, they would believe in curves more than, this is the beginning, and they're at the beginning. So they're open to new information. It's all new information. So we made it a children's toy, and we sold it all over the world. Every major museum in the United States bought it. Every major department store bought it. We sold more kits than Lego and Etch-a-Sketch. It was the biggest selling item in Macy's, Bloomingdale's. The Museum of Modern Art in New York bought 10,000 kits.
Wow.
And the reason was it was completely unique. It had artistic value, and was also showing geometry in ways that nothing else could do. It was like a space-age tinker toy set. Instead of straight lines connecting, everything was connecting in curves.
Yes, beautiful.
So I sold these all over the world. This was a special package. Museum of Modern Art had me do a special package for them. And what you could do, now here's a tetrahedron made with space clusters.
Yes.
Octahedron, all curved. So this I wound up calling, instead of a tetrahedron, this was a tetrene, because it was going in. It was a tetrahedron exhaling.
Yes.
Remember, everything is fluctuating in and out, in and out. It's all breathing. So it's a tetrene. In the middle of the tetrene is an octatron. And here's 10 tetrines, 4 octatrons.
Right. I mean, for me, I feel like it's showing the same symmetries, as the geometries we know. It's just a different kind of perspective, looking at it more from a rounded perspective. You still see the same dots.
You're looking at it from another dimension.
Right. Yes.
From another moment in time, space and time. It's this and it's that, what we think is simultaneously. We don't see the curve because this is down, it's so small that this is occurring that it seems straight to us. By the time it gets to our visualization, because we know the Planck length is 0.3501. That's really small.
Yeah.
Icosahedron.
Yeah, I could see that.
This is the core, and that's an icosatrine. This is a Mickey ball looking at the core, which is an icosatrine.
That looks like veins.
So the core,
veins of the body.
pardon?
The veins of the body, lungs and things.
Yes, absolutely. Synapse. This is how the brain is wired. This is the wiring system. This was a show I did with a woman by the name Margaret Wertheim. She's a scientist and mathematician. A yellow tetrahedron, an octatrine, 4 octatrines. So I divided up geometry in a way it was never done before. This is, you're familiar with Leonardo da Vinci's Virtual Man?
Yes, of course.
This is my version of the Virtual Man.
All right.
How about that, Maureen?
Nice.
This is the Virtual Woman.
Right. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, where are you at today? You still doing exhibitions and stuff like that? Do you have the focus?
All right, where am I today? I didn't want to go out there anymore and deal with buyers and the retail world. The way it was done, I didn't care for. So when I go to Laguna Beach from Chicago, because I was going all over the country selling my toys, New York to California, Minnesota to Miami. And I wanted to spend my life. So I put it away for 25, 30 years. And then under the VA program for rehabilitation, I went to art school in Laguna. And I was in a figure drawing class. And the teacher said, don't draw the arm and the torso separately. Draw the space between the arm and the torso. And all of a sudden I said, well, I know about the space between things. And then I got everything out, it all put away. It was all, I didn't pull it out and talk about it 20 years at least. Let's see the test of time. So I had an opportunity of taking a self class where I was able to explore different parts of sculpture on my own, and the government actually paid for me to buy the materials necessary to make these optic structures. This is a very expensive mold material. And at the time, I just didn't have the money, but the government came up with the money because it was part of my art program and my rehabilitation program. So I started making all of these structures. I would take paper, and then I'd fill it with polyester, or I'd make a mold, I'd fill it with polyester, and then I would polish it for an inordinate amount of time, and until it became optically correct. And then I had a few art shows and was selling the sculptures, and then Facebook happened, and I didn't go out. I have nothing to sell. Don't sell toys anymore. Don't make toys. They're not for sale. Don't. I know people ask me, gee, I wish I could buy one. I'm waiting for somebody to come along and say, hey, Mike, let's make them. I'll do the work. I'll do, because I'm done. I've done my job. It's up to, I've planted my seeds. Now it's up to the rest of the world to either get it or not. Not my responsibility.
But anyway, now you have done a lot of work in your life, and you've invented quite a lot of different names for geometries. So in all this time, what was your most mind-opening experience?
When I built the Mickey ball and when I found the Tryon Ray. Because when I built the Mickey ball, when the sphere came about, I didn't know I was going to get a sphere. I was only putting tetrahedrons together. I was putting these together, just these.
Yeah.
And wherever they would go, they would go. I didn't know where they'd go. And then all of a sudden, I had the structure 6 feet in diameter in my small living room, taking up all the space. And I was looking for the 5s and the 6s. Because the Mickey ball or the Bucky ball has 5s surrounded by 6s. And I couldn't find them until one day I kept putting together, and all of a sudden, there they were. There was a 5, there was a 6, 6, 6, 6. And I realized I created a sphere from just tetrahedrons. So I realized it was like going through the lens. It was like going through a crystal ball from one end to the other end and seeing how all that geometry, which has been considered empty space for thousands of years. I mean, what's inside the sphere? I mean, it's empty space. Not. So I described an empty space. And then when I found the Tryon Ray after building structures, after building these structures, and I started putting them together, then I saw this negative space between the tetrahedrons and the octahedrons, and I made that negative space into positive space.
Yes, yes.
And I had the Tryon Ray. And then when I shot the laser through one end and it went through the other, I knew that it was the shape of light.
Yeah, nice. And so what did it do with your mind? I mean, how do you see reality today?
The reality is that I've always been, I will always be, everything is connected. I am the universe. You are the universe. We are connected. What more is there to think about?
So you got all the answers. You think you have the answers? Yes.
Yeah, cool. I do. I do have the answers. And I can say that, yes, I do. I am the universe. I am. You are. We are. And I know physically how it works. There's no faith. I don't have to believe in some. I know the matrix. I know the geometry. I have put it together. And I didn't put it together knowing that I was putting it together. I was following it way it wanted to go. In other words, when you're putting a space cluster together, you don't know, you pre-planned. It was all, matter of fact, on the back of the space cluster kit, it said the makers of space clusters have limited the images that you can make. Do your own thing, good luck, have fun. That was it. Take the rod, stick it in the intersection, just keep doing this, you'll have fun.
Right.
Right now in the world, we're in a very interesting place. And until we realize that we are all connected and no one is as free as the lowest rung of society, they can do it to the lowest rung, they can do it to you. So we have a lot of evolving, I think, to do on the planet. And it really doesn't, in some way, it really doesn't matter. Either we'll figure it out or it won't. and a meteor is going to take it all out anyway.
But we're
So,
all gonna die anyway, right?
right, we're going to go
One way or the other.
whether we figure it out. However, if we really would take our guns and ammo and turn it into space exploration, then possibly someday in the future, we might be able to go to another place and continue this human race. So if we put it into a space race instead of a war race, all of a sudden people would now, here's the problem. People are a commodity. If you don't need the people, they're worthless. So but if you're going to populate the stars, you need every human being you can get. And all of a sudden they become valuable. And until people become valuable commodities, then this is going to go undated. So that's how I look at that.
It's nice. I like it. Yeah, I think we went through quite a lot of different things, and I really like a lot of the images that you show. In the end, I just want to go through a couple of more of the hot 5 questions I'm asking every person I'm interviewing. And in these questions, you're just choosing one of the options, right? So,
okay.
So how do you think the universe came into being? Through mind or matter?
One and the same.
Same.
Yeah. They're both the same. The mind and the matter, same thing.
Yeah, that's great.
My thought is a solid. It's contained within the Tryon Ray. And that original thought is pattern recognition. And when all that pattern recognition keeps weaving and weaving and weaving and creating the synapse of our brain, by the time it gets to that point, it has the ability of self-realization.
Nice. Good answer.
Process. So you don't divide them. They're one and the same. Always.
Okay. So what do you resonate with more in general, with science or philosophy?
I find that they're both describing, they're like the wise men, the blind wise men feeling an elephant. One's feeling the trunk, one's feeling the tail, one's feeling the legs, and they're all describing it in a different way, but it's still the same thing. And there's an analogy between religion is trying to explain the universe in its ability to express itself using the terms that it knows how to use, and science is doing the same thing.
Yes.
Just different
Absolutely
language.
True.
All private.
I always say in science there exist theories and hypotheses. In religion there are beliefs, and it's still a thought.
Well, the one thing that makes science most interesting to me is that the experiment has to be able to be duplicated by another.
Yeah, objective.
So, right, there's an objectivity to it that allows whatever is to be.
Yes. And in general, what do you like more, geometry or music?
I have a lot of friends that the reason I got involved with them was because geometry and music that's how they saw things in 432 that was in my work, in my geometry. And so I'm more into, I'd say the same. No more in one than the other.
Yes, sure. And do you think that the universe is primarily chaotic, or does it follow a distinct pattern?
Yeah, there's a pattern to it.
Yes.
The Mickey ball. I'm going to read something to you. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Or is it without beginning? The law creates thought and life. Man has created a vision of God in his own image throughout the ages. The concept of God does not limit itself to an interpretation or either material or immaterial. Form gives way to the advantage of stream. The inescapable laws of the universe wrap us and protect us by showing the order of things. That's what I try and do. That's what I get from putting things together. There's an order of events. The law makes no mistakes. We are part of it. We are co-creators. The creation is continuous, eternal, unlimited in time, space, and form. Now I tell you truly, your body was not made not only to breathe and eat and think, but was also made to enter the holy stream of life. And your ears were not made, were made not only to hear the words of men, the song of birds, the music of falling rain, but they were also made to hear the holy stream of sound. And your eyes were made not only to see the rising and setting of the sun, the ripples of sheaves of grain, and the words of the holy scroll, but they were also made to see the holy stream of life. One day your body will return to the earthly mother, even also your ears and your eyes. But the holy stream of sound, the holy stream of light, these were never born and can never die. Enter the holy streams, even that life, that sound, and that light which gave you birth, that you may reach the kingdom of the Heavenly Father and become one with Him, even as the river empties into the far distant sea. More than this cannot be told. For the holy streams will take you to a place where words are no more, and even the holy scrolls cannot record the mysteries therein. That's from the Essene
Nice.
Gospel. They have my spiritual connection, and that follow my geometric discoveries the most. I recommend them over any kind of.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Very beautiful poem, or I don't know, prayer.
Oh, what first?
So actually, I have only one more question left, but I'm almost feeling like I already know the answer to that. What you're gonna say, which is, do you prefer a sphere or a cube? But I think you're gonna say the Mickey ball.
I prefer
the Tryon Ray. All right. Yes.
All the rest. The fun
Yeah.
is the all.
Well.
And it makes sense philosophically as well. The one.
Nice. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for this very beautiful interview.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Yes. Is there anything else you want to share? I think you already shared one of a very nice, surprising, message here.
Well, it's pretty hard to follow the Essene Gospel. I do recommend. It's hard to find the original works. There is a gentleman by the name of Edmond Bordeaux Zeckley, who passed away now for quite some time, who translated these books from the secret libraries of the Vatican.
Yes.
And he discusses those are excerpts from his books, the Essene Gospels of people. So I recommend them. They follow anything scientific or mathematic. They totally make sense and do not contradict each other.
Right.
No faith is required.
Yes, just like in geometry, no faith is required. You just need to play with shapes. Yes. So yeah, thank you very much. Yes, keep in touch. Check out his website. I wanted to say, please check out Michael Evans' website. It's in the link.
Michael R.
Michael R. Evans. Should you ever start drawing with a drawing compass and you will come to overlapping circles, you will discover one of the shapes he invented. Yeah, the Tryon Ray. Don't forget that. uh, thank you very much, Michael, for your input and sharing your knowledge and yeah, your artistic creations. It's always very nice to see that.
Been a
Yes.
wild ride.
And yeah,
Right.
I hope you're gonna have a good day. I see you.